All right, I'm Rebecca Cantor. Thanks so much for being here. We are working on building simulation-based assessments that try and evaluate underlying deep thinking skills, quote unquote 21st century skills. Today, I'm not going to have time to go through absolutely everything about us, so just want to highlight a few things that make us kind of different. We start with kind of a very theoretical approach of definitions of these problem solving in this case, or critical thinking, systems thinking types of skills, and we bring that to a really practical definition that we actually derive with employer partners. So for example, we've worked with McKinsey for the last few years, trying to understand how does a theoretical approach to problem solving actually manifest in a workplace of people who do problem solving as their core day in, day out job. We then have to abstract out the nature of what we learn about the day-to-day tasks, the skills people use, into a set of scenarios that are abstracted into a natural world environment. So we choose the natural world environment largely to limit bias, to make sure that no matter where someone grew up, what they studied, they have a fair shot at interacting with our assessment, but also to take advantage of kind of the underlying conceptual foundations that, just as being humans, we're somewhat familiar with when we think about the natural world. So plants, animals, the weather, et cetera, these are categorically familiar variables. A couple of big challenges as of late that you've probably seen in the news around high-stakes assessments we're aiming to play long-term in the college admission space. That means we have to think about cheating, coaching, the attempts of gaming our tests. Imbellus has chosen to take a really different approach. So instead of locking up our scenarios in some kind of proverbial grand fortress and taking your phone and making sure that iPads never leave a testing center, we've taken a fundamentally different approach. Our scenarios like this one, where you're building an ecosystem and you're placing it in an environment, all have different data values. And you'll notice from scenario to scenario, we're constantly changing the underlying data values. So what one person gets in our test is completely different from what someone else gets at test time. Now, this brings up a huge range of AI challenges in equating different forms of an assessment. So when you take one form of the SAT now and someone else takes another form, a group of psychometricians have painstakingly ensured that the difficulty for each of those test forms is equivalent, and for you, the test taker, there's virtually no difference in what form you're getting. When we're changing all of this underlying data in a 30 or 40-minute scenario, the complexity of trying to equate these two different test forms becomes immense. And when you multiply that times 3,000 or so of these scenarios that we generate, times all sorts of different scenarios that we build, the problem is enormous. So Imbellus has chosen to really take on a computational approach to estimating what we call complexity, which would be before you see how users actually do what we think is going to happen based on what we've designed in our scenarios. So this is an example of a task where an invasive species, you can see up there, in this case it's a rat, is trying to reach a native plant as its kind of home base. And users are able to change the underlying terrain to change the pathfinding of the invasive species. They're also able to place different defenders. So this is a pretty standard tower defense game, but with some modifications that make it a useful assessment. So we've chosen to bring this to life computationally, by basically running 9 different versions of how this task is going to play out. I don't know why this isn't playing as a video, but anyway, our bots are basically emulating different human heuristics, and we're looking at how well they fare on different versions of the game board. Our next task is to then take that computational estimate, actually deploy our different forms of our assessment in real-life test settings, and look at the differences in distributions, both on an item-by-item and whole test basis. Of course, generating this many items in our assessment brought up this question of how do we possibly drive development costs down enough to support so many different permutations of our assessments. So we started working on a set of tools that allow us to just make UI really fast, cheap, and easy. But the bigger challenge came around the 3D world, and I'm sure anyone who's ever worked with bringing 3D into educational use cases, usually the games or educational products that try and use 3D environments look terrible. And it's because the challenge of building high-fidelity scenes that look and feel awe-inspiring is just really expensive. So Imbellus chose to take on 2 computational challenges here, one around generating procedural systems for how to create whole scenes. So you can see here there are kind of different zones, and depending on the different rules we've applied to different zones, we're able to procedurally create these environments. So you can get something, oops, oh wow, interesting. We didn't plan on this. Anyway, maybe the next one will load better. You can get all these different stages of how our worlds manifest without a human ever being involved. So scenes can really vary in, the way they come together, but they all have the same components that make them look believable as if they were a real world ecosystem. When we started building out these different scenes of our natural world environments, we discovered that still the core cost actually lied in building one asset, so in creating a fish like this into a 3D model. So we've worked to computationally estimate everything from an underlying point cloud to the actual topography of any asset we're going to build into our ecosystems, to transferring the animation from a template. This is all just a series of neural nets. I'm just glossing over it for time. And then borrowing the final texture so that we're able to, from scratch, generate an asset like this fish that was originally just a 2D image. And when we put it all together in the right lighting and the right environments, you get scenes like this one, or in the case of a bear that we've transformed from an underlying wolf in our training data, you'd get a scene and a bear more like this one. So we're able to just, for fractions of a penny and fractions of a second, create huge amounts of data that allows us to constantly transform the forms of our assessment. Thanks.
My name is Ariel. I'm the co-founder of IronHack, and let's start the day. I don't have a video for you, but let's do a little mental trip this morning. Gonna get on a plane and we're gonna go to Spain. The year is 2013. What's going on? Good times, bad times. All right, we're gonna have to cut on the tapas and sangria because the economy is not doing so well. We probably hit the lowest point in the economic recession of the country. If you look at general unemployment, we're talking about 27%. But if you look at the youth population of Spain, that number was abysmal, 56%. So you're talking about 6 out of every 10 individuals under 25 that are not in college, they're not getting a job. And for context, in the United States around that time, we're somewhere around the 12%. So that's a perfect backdrop to move to Spain and start a company. That's me and my co-founder Gonzalo in our first office. This is our garage picture. And we're very excited about Spain for several reasons that I'll talk about. So what is IronHack? IronHack is a leading coding school, now UX school and data analytics school in Europe and Latin America. We're training people in these 3 different tracks with immersive courses that go anywhere from 9 weeks to 6 months with a very strong focus on getting people jobs. We've graduated 3,000 students since inception, and we're very proud to share an 80% placement rate within 3 months, which is incredibly impressive in our markets. And we've been ranked for the last 3 years as one of the top 3 global coding schools by Course Report and SwitchUp. These are the authorities that ranked these type of organizations. And here are cities. We're operational in 9 cities, all great cities that I recommend visiting. All right, so let's talk about what got us excited about these markets. The one thing that was comforting to us, even though these people couldn't get jobs, is that there were thousands, hundreds of thousands of vacancies in technology and technology-related areas. So if you look at Europe and Latin America, you have about 1 million jobs that are currently unfilled. And when you look at the issue of youth unemployment, that was only one part of the story. Underemployment was another very pressing issue as well. Many young adults couldn't get enough hours of work per week and couldn't afford a living wage. Another interesting point, in Europe and Latin America, careers are very static. So once you get on the train of being an architect or an engineer, you kind of think of yourself only as an architect. We don't have the same agility that we see here in the United States. And if you see, job satisfaction takes a big hit as a result of that. So we think there's tremendous opportunities for career changers, and in order to do that, we need new agile educational providers. And of course, in our business, return on investment on tuition is pivotal. And in these markets we're seeing, we don't have a lot of data in Latin America yet, but in Europe we're seeing an actual bigger increase than in the United States. And in the early experiments in Latin America, we're seeing some students double or triple their income after our course. Our vision is to be the leading solution, leading provider that tackles this youth unemployment and digital gaps issue in these 2 regions. And we're doing it with a 3-pronged approach. Many of these markets don't have the same organization and ecosystem development that we see in some of the big markets in the US, so we start with community. We seed user groups, we provide workshops on how to change your career into tech, we support all sorts of educational organizations that help people take that first step. As a student-centric organization, we do anything in our power to help our students get a better return by pricing locally. When it makes sense, we teach in another language that's not English. And of course, we can't solve the gap without working very closely with employers and companies. In every market, we have at least 2 individuals that are focused on doing outreach to employers, and we constantly cater the curriculum and treat it as an agile software product to reflect changing market needs. Outcomes, like I said, is everything in our space. We're very proud to have maintained 80% plus over the past 5 years, while increasing our volume of students by 18 times. These are some of the great companies that we worked with in the past couple of years. Currently, we have a network of about 1,000 employers globally. On the financial side, we're very excited to have delivered consistent revenue growth of 100% year over year for the past 5 years, and we've done it in a very sustainable way. This was a company that was bootstrapped for the first 4 years of the business, and we've done it in a very old school type of way, focusing on margins and cash flow. For the growth investors in the room, the rule of 40 basically looks at revenue growth minus burn rate. Any number above 40 is great. We're looking at 106% for our last year. Going forward, there's still a lot of room to grow. New locations in our regions, we think we can hit another 12 locations within Europe and Latin America. New programs, not only new tracks, but also how do we follow the student throughout the journey before they enroll in IronHack and beyond that initial bootcamp experience. But now the big area of focus for us is B2B, right? Like I said, it's super important that we work very closely with employers, and we're thinking, how can we provide talent solutions for employers at scale, and how can we help them think about their reskilling needs in their existing companies? Like I said, we've helped thousands of students in the last couple of years, and working even more closely with employers, we think we can be the leading provider and leading solution for solving this very present problem. Here's my contact information if you want to collaborate with us in any way. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. Thank you, ASU GSV, and everyone here for the opportunity to share the story of iTutor. I'm Harry Arora, founder and CEO. Stemming from 3 generations of the educators, I was inspired to do something that will transform the education world. Company from day one focused on the public school districts and helping them solve their day-to-day problems. So let's take a look at it. So this is what a typical classroom looks like. It looks like a factory model from an industrial era. So teachers at any given day are competing with the mandates for the missed work, English language learners, special needs and accommodations, and the classroom management issues. And we get a sense of why the attrition rate is so high with public school teachers in the US. This is also why teachers are teaching to the middle. And when we look at nationally, this is a broader view of the challenges facing teachers and districts across the country. It results in an equity gap in both urban and rural areas. And here's the solution, iTutor solution. We are humanizing technology. iTutor's unique solutions humanizes EdTech. We provide live synchronous instruction provided by state-certified teachers, all grade levels, all subjects. Our transformational solutions includes virtual classroom, learning management system, and US state certified teachers. So school districts, when we are solving their problems, they have come to rely on iTutor to help close the gap of the equity gap. So we have created a culture of excellence. We only employ certified teachers and have empowered a network of education entrepreneurs. Our product ecosystem is amplified by our strategic partnerships with content providers, technology partners, teacher partnerships, and iTutor has been vetted and endorsed by Johns Hopkins University. We're the exclusive online learning partner for AASA and recently accredited by Advanced Ed as a digital learning institute. But as always, our stakeholder advocates say it the best. Let me just play a quick video here.
Actually, once we engaged iTutor, our problems went away virtually immediately. We established a quick working relationship with them. They were very helpful in establishing this computer-based instruction for our kids to really get one-on-one instruction. And the issue went away for me. So it was really, we were very, very pleased with that. My board was very pleased with that, and so were the parents and the students, even more importantly.
They know our children. They work with our children. And they seek to say, this is where you are, and this is where you need to be, and we're going to work together to get there.
The tutors were professional and learned and ready and involved, invested with our students, and really helped them achieve more than the students who didn't use it. The ones that did use the service achieved a full letter grade higher scores in their classes than the students who didn't.
The way it's immediate feedback, it is just revolutionizing education, I think.
Great timings. So in 5 years, we have built a significant traction. We have grown from 2 to over 1,000 school partnerships, over 1,000 certified teachers, and leadership team of experienced education professionals. Now that we have built a foundation suited for a skyscraper, we're looking for growth partners to build a legacy with us. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Scott McFarland. I'm CEO of ProctorU. We're a 10-year-old business. We do online exam security and identity verification. It's a really simple business. Basically, we watch people take tests online. That said, it's one of the most logistically complex businesses I've ever been in, and I'll explain why. Oh, I need a clicker, don't I? So we pursue two major markets. The first one is higher ed, which is why we're here. The market is about $2 billion or so in total addressable market, and it's shifting from test center-based or classroom-based proctoring to online. The other market is professional testing and certifications. Currently, the people that own that market are Pearson, Prometric, and PSI. But we're seeing a lot of movement from the test center-based proctoring model to an online proctoring model in both of these markets. The obligatory logo slide of marquee clients, we have about 1,000 academic institutions, all the way from large online schools right down to private, private for-profits, to large academics, community colleges, and so on. We have about 1,000 institutions under contract. In the last few years, we've got about 250 customers on the PT side, what we call the certification side of this business. But in the last year or so, we've been able to acquire some very large brand names in specifically the IT certification space. So those guys are starting to shift. We're also seeing, one of the funny ones up here is Chartered Accountancy of Ireland. They've been doing the same thing, testing in centers with quill and parchment since, I think, 140 years ago. And they're actually moving online as well. So it's pretty exciting to see this shift in trust in online testing. So why is it important? Well, if you missed the last few weeks of any kind of news, you would understand, right? Everybody expects a level playing field. As parents, We want our students to have the same opportunities and testing environments as everybody else. Nobody should have an advantage or a disadvantage. So there is an expectation of a level playing field. But the reality is, some people cheat. Our data indicates that 78% of people will bring an unpermitted resource to an exam, something like a calculator or a phone or notes or books or whatever. Are they intending to cheat? Who knows? But you have to clear those environments, right? So you need somebody to do that. Even after clearing the environments, 8% of all students will attempt to cheat during an exam. So we prevent those cheating events. Even after that, 2%, almost 2% of all students that are taking a test are so desperate they're going to cheat anyway, and we catch them. We built, in the last 10 years, the largest and most scalable live proctoring platform in the world. We have 3 locations in the Philippines, 3 domestic US. Each of these centers holds about 100 to 150 proctors. We have 24/7, 365 service. It's a pretty impressive thing. These centers did 1.5 million exams last year. And in finals week, because you imagine the worst 2 weeks of my life every year is finals weeks in December, we did upwards of 2,000 exams per hour in multiple hours over multiple days. That's a lot of sessions in those weeks. That's why it's logistically complex, the staffing and planning around that to make that work. So despite being the cops for students that are taking exams and preventing them from doing things they want to do, which is get a better grade, we have a very high satisfaction rate. So 67% give us 5 out of 5. 92% give us either a 4 or a 5 out of 5. Generally, the people that we catch cheating don't grade us very highly. We do this because we get almost everybody into their exam the first time through, nearly 100%. So everybody gets in their exam within 15, 20 minutes of when they intended to, whether they have a technical issue or not. And their wait times to connect to a proctor are generally less than 5 minutes. So it's pretty fascinating. Again, a logistically complex problem that we solve pretty well. We have a lot of options for exam security. So lower stakes exams and just identity verification models include products like UAuth. We built a custom product for Google in the last year called Classroom that we'll be releasing in June. We have an automated product that uses artificial intelligence to identify suspect behaviors. We use facial recognition and AI to support our Live Plus human proctors. And then we also have a pro model for ultra high stakes exams. The way it works today is a proctor will launch a test taker into their exam and give them the instructions and tell them the rules. A proctor would watch those test takers and then use AI to help identify suspect behaviors. When the AI alerts the proctor that there is a suspect behavior, we engage an interventionist to determine whether or not that was a cheating event, and then we challenge the test taker if in fact it was. The way this will look in the near future is AI will become better than human proctors. And the only places where we'll have humans is at the front end in the launch process and during a cheating event where we'll use interventionists. We've invested a lot in analytics. We use a Tableau platform in order to give BI, and we do a lot of work around that to identify and eventually begin to forecast where cheating behaviors may start going. So we should be able to identify if somebody is likely or has a higher propensity to cheat than somebody else. Finally, last point, in the last 10 years, we've been awarded 2 patents, both in the last couple of years. Both are related to online proctoring and identity verification. So it's been a pretty exciting run for 10 years, looking at the next 10. And we won't do questions, but I did want to leave that in your minds. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Sandy Lynn, the CEO, co-founder of Skilljar. And I'm very excited to be sharing today how our customers like Zenefits, Asana, and Zendesk are using Skilljar's technology to deliver amazing product training and certifications to their customers. Now, most of us understand the concept of training employees. Some of the previous presenters have talked about that, but why train your external customers and partners? Well, for decades, companies have invested, billions or even trillions of dollars in sales and marketing functions in the name of new logo acquisition. But we are living in a subscription economy where customers now have choices, and if they aren't using their licenses to the fullest extent and value, customers now have options, and they will churn at the next opportunity. And this has created a new focus on what we like to call customer enablement across the entire customer lifecycle. And training plays the critical role from initial onboarding and adoption to revenue retention at contract renewal to ongoing expansion and customer advocacy. And these are, in fact, some of the measurable benefits that our customers have been able to achieve with Skilljar. Using our technology, our customers have dramatically improved the product adoption by their end users. They've increased training participation and time to value. They've created new streams of both direct and indirect revenue. And they've done all this with tremendous efficiency and scalability in their internal teams. Now, for the many of you that I'm sure are familiar with academic or corporate education, you might ask, why not use a learning management system, or how is this different from an HR learning management system? So while an LMS and Skilljar do share the ability to host and deliver training content with analytics, that is where the similarities end. As a customer training platform, Skilljar has unique features around accessibility, user experience, and monetization. These are designed for voluntary external learning. And on the reporting side, we have a set of data and integrations that allow our customers to close the loop between training participation, product engagement, and ultimately revenue. And to tell you more, I'd love to share some words from our customers talking about how they use Skilljar today.
The customers who are taking training see that we're committing to their success and are more likely to be able to do more complex things with our product.
There's a mental model that focuses on this one-to-one training concept, but on the other hand, that doesn't scale. So as our company's growing, what I'm tasked with is showing that we can educate at scale without losing the quality.
You want to make sure that you have happy, loyal customers. Best ways to do that is through educating your customers to make sure that they are able to realize the value of your product.
Skilljar is a software-based platform where you can create online training courses to teach information about your products.
Skilljar gives you what you want in an LMS for an external-facing customer education program without bogging you down with all the stuff that you don't want. It's really easy to use. The experience for customers is great. And when I think about an LMS, I think about the customer experience, number one.
The content development side is super lightweight and anyone can use it. So I can do a 10-minute flyby and teach anybody in our organization, here's how you build a class. You have to decide, you want a text lesson, you want a video lesson, you want a quiz, and they get it, right? So it enables this extended authoring pool.
Key value and benefit of Skilljar for our company has been ease of use, not only for the customers, but also our employees.
User-friendly and intuitive. If you went into it with zero knowledge, you could at least navigate through it.
You feel like it's like a support or a partnership, and not so much that, okay, well, this is just another tool or vendor that we have.
The flexibility of the product itself was the key thing. We train our SMEs to build their own courses, and so we needed something that had a fairly shallow learning curve, but still could create good courses, and they could be as simple as they needed to be, or we could create much more sophisticated courses all within the same authoring tool.
We're looking at the impact of training on annual recurring revenue. So customers are being trained, we see 153% higher annual recurring revenue compared to those customers that are not engaged in training.
Definitely we've seen an increase in revenue, which is so exciting for us. And beyond that, we've seen our customer satisfaction really increase. We have just seen massive improvement since we've started working with Skilljar.
And that's it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Cooper. I'm the CEO of Skilljar. Can you hear me okay? So we're an online platform for creative learning. And there are a lot of dynamics going on in the world right now that are certainly pushing people in our direction, a lot of which is driven by the kind of underlying change in technology and innovation. As automation and AI gain more steam, a lot of the skills that the frontline workers are using today are going to be obsolete in the next 3 years. So there's two ways to think about this. Number one is the robots are coming, and the last people they will harvest are the creatives. The other option is a lot of the work that people don't enjoy doing that can be automated, it's freeing us up to work on the higher level tasks that are more uniquely human. That's kind of the view from the frontline employee. Recent IBM survey of 1,500 CEOs, they said that creativity was the #1 factor for their future success. So we're seeing it both at the highest levels of organizations, but also from the bottoms up. There's also just a lot more demand to be creative. I think we are all creators in one way, shape, or form. We all have iPhones. We all have social media. I would bet that somebody has tweeted, posted, et cetera, in the last 12 to 24 hours. And the demand, as you think about employment, I'll give you a guess. What's the #1 reason people switch jobs? It's money. But the #2 reason is creativity. And the reality is all of these jobs that we're automating, people don't want to do this work. They want to be stimulated. They want to have more opportunities to use their brain and to use those uniquely human creative skills. Nowhere is this more pronounced than in the millennial generation, which is now, I believe last number I saw was over half of the U.S. workforce. 67% of millennials would opt for a job where they have more creativity, more self-control, more self-determination, as long as they can pay their bills. So they're optimizing for a very different set of things than previous generations optimized for. And when we talk about creativity, I think people tend to go towards Jackson Pollock splattering paint all over a wall. Ultimately, creativity is about connecting the dots and applying it in unique and different ways. It's taking ideas from one walk of life and applying it to something completely different. And that cross-pollination comes from having a breadth and depth of experience. So it's about trying new things. It's about experimenting. It's about learning things outside of your normal day-to-day swim lane. And it's really hard to do that through the traditional learning models. So we think about Skillshare, a couple things that make us different. First of all, it's an open platform, so anyone can come in and teach. We have we have over 7,000 teachers. We're adding about 200 teachers every month. Our #1 source of new teachers is our students. So by having it be completely open, we will always have a depth and breadth of content and a sort of a freshness and agility of the content that's really hard to replicate through the traditional producer model. The second thing is the subscription. So again, if creativity is all about breadth of experience, you need to be able to experiment with different classes, try new things. You come in thinking you want to take the content marketing class, but then you see this really interesting sketch class or Procreate class, or you get bored and you just want to take the coffee making class. By giving them a subscription where they can constantly explore new topics, there's no additional cost to consume. It just creates that incentive to try and test new things. And then the third component is every class has a project associated with it. So once you learn something, you got to put it to work. That's how it really sinks in. We have about 170,000 projects that have been uploaded to the site. Once you go through the class, you upload your project, you get feedback from your teacher, from other students. So there's a very strong community feel to it that kind of reinforces that learning and that activity. So quick high-level stats. We have over 25,000 classes, about 7,000 teachers. Again, that's growing at about 200 teachers a month, and we're adding 600 to 700 new classes every month. We have over 7 million registered members, heading towards 8 million, and over 400 corporate clients. So what we're doing is certainly striking a chord. This is our growth over the last couple of years. On the left side is our total registered users. On the right side is our total class count. And again, as we drive more usage and we get more students, we're using that to feed the flywheel and get more teachers and more classes. So we have a very interesting platform dynamic within Skillshare where with every new student we add, we pay out teachers more money. As teachers earn more, they produce more classes, which increases the value of that subscription. So for $15 a month or $99 a year, you have access to every single class we offer. So by keeping that flywheel spinning in a really healthy way, we've seen pretty dramatic growth over the last couple of years. So thanks for your time. Happy to answer more questions between sessions.
The good news, this is the last presentation. So my name is Mark Oswald. I'm co-founder and CEO of Open Assessment Technologies, the company behind the development of TAO, the world's leading open source assessment platform. The product launched commercially about 10 years ago as part of a massive deployment across some 80 countries. For the PISA assessments. That was in 2009, and then we did it again in 2012. And as the word started spreading that TAO is actually open source, our inbox quickly started flowing over. And so that actually led to the launch of the company, Open Assessment Technologies, TAO in reverse, in 2013. And so we started the company with the mission, it was a big mission, to accelerate innovation in digital assessment. Why such a big mission? For a couple of reasons. So first, assessment isn't any longer your traditional assessment, where you have students sitting a test, but it also includes more embedded type of assessments that are being built into learning applications. So assessment is really about the measurement of human skills and knowledge. And but in order to advance that, in particular in the light of personalized learning, if you look at the technologies and tools out there, there's actually quite a few obstacles along the way. So for one, personalized learning requires pervasive access to learning data. But if you go into a school district and you look at how teachers are struggling to collect that data from different apps or different assessment programs, you quickly hit the issues of interoperability. So not being able to really collect the data and interpret the data to formulate learning recommendations. It also puts school districts and state departments of education at the state level in a position where they basically gave away control over their assessment needs, and in the process was driving up costs. So these are quite a few obstacles to innovation. And so we are changing that with what we call the TAO paradigm. So it's based on open technology standards. For one, in order to make data flowing freely, you need to build it on top of industry standards, so like QTI for your assessment content or Caliper for your operational data. And of course, we couple that with open source. And that leads to a whole new paradigm for the customers out there. So rather than renting or licensing a proprietary technology, we offer them a model where they can actually invest into something they will own past the procurement period, which is typically 4 years. So if you look at it that way, it radically reduces total cost of ownership, and that is basically why it enables customers to actually move to a single platform. It's an enterprise architecture platform that allows you to do all types of assessments, not just K-12, not just the standard ones, but also in credentialing, in licensure, or higher education. And the great part of the story here, and this isn't the bragging slide, even though it looks like one, these are actually the organizations that are participating in the open source community. Some of them are customers, others are users who basically leverage the freely available technology to run their own programs. Among the larger scale ones, for instance, we as a company, we of course operate Tau in the cloud, and we're delivering just over the last 6 weeks, we've run over 5 million tests for the Ministry of Education in Italy, for instance, a nationwide assessment program. So we do that for some of these players, but the great thing is that there's the sharing economy that's enabled through open source, and where one party contributes features, others pick it up and enhance it, and it benefits everybody. And but of course, because it is open source, there's a bigger story here. We have lots of users in the developing world who basically have access to the same technology stack as everybody else, and who run their own assessment programs without having to enter a commercial agreement with us. So that's basically what we do. We combine the benefits of open source and open standards to give people the flexibility they need, and especially in K-12 to help customers reduce their total cost of ownership. And if you want to know more, we're down at the GSV Marketplace. Please come and talk to us. Thank you very much.